Hi, this is Sarah. Today's session will be a little different. James has asked me to read an essay he wrote recently in the middle of 2024. It was spurred by a question from one of his readers, and he wanted to share it through this media channel. So what follows is an essay entitled Our Collective Reality. Question: what if this is just a prison planet, and our overlords want us to believe in all of this oneness, unity, God, and the golden rule, because it simply makes us more compliant? What if we're just prisoners inside a simulation or illusionary world without knowing or understanding why we are inside such a prison-like reality? Answer: if we grant that interconnection can only arise from intelligence, and the intelligence that utilizes interconnection must operate across bodies, then this intelligence is not contained in one body. Take trees, for example. We're just learning, through the lens of science, that trees communicate amongst themselves through their roots and the soil within a forest. There is a larger entity than one tree. There's a social group that communicates. If trees and plants can do this, why can't other organisms? How does one contain this intelligence once it is not bound by a singular body? The intelligence to communicate across bodies is universal. At every scale of life, there is communication. The language of survival and lineage live within all species. This language is not contained or curtailed. It cannot be held or suppressed. It is the universal intelligence individualized, socialized, and then organized into one clarity and coherence of one organism. Why would such an organism create a prison planet? In other words, a planet that appeared to be one thing, a powerful, magnetic, amazing, complex theater of form, color, movement, and individualized intelligence, and then hide its true nature so we all believe we are free when we are not. All of this so we would refuse to believe that we are individual centers of co-creation, interconnected to one another through high-dimensional elements of our consciousness. And yet, it was all a ruse, an illusion. Why would an intelligence of that nature that actually animates nature be so inclined to be inauthentic, deceptive, or even indifferent? The facade of high dimensionality is low dimensionality. Low dimensionality creates relative ignorance of high dimensionality. In this relative ignorance, it's easy to believe that the intelligence of low dimensionality could be corrupted because of free will and the inequity of power. However, as we watch science increasingly validate that we are interconnected not only intraspecies, but all species, all forms of life in all space-times, and that the intelligence of our planet is but an atom in the infinite cells of the one, many, and all consciousness. The scale of the intelligence is utterly without bounds, and so why would such an intelligence create prisons or seek to control? The only way this universal intelligence can individualize itself is by creating space-time within low dimensionality. And in this space-time, new forms are created as part of this intelligence, seeking to explore its created world. The only way the all that is one can gain authentic experience is to grant its individual life forms in space-time free will, to enable each of us to use our DNA-apportioned, low-dimensional intelligence to regain access to its high-dimensional intelligence. Now, we could say that the bridge to high-dimensional intelligence is controlled by those in power at the levels of government and beyond. But these are simply individualized life forms that are experiencing their reality as free will entities. The intelligence of love That thing that interconnects us is not controlling. It is not making a prison or a heaven. It is not trying to change or oppress. It is simply experiencing space-time dimensionality as an explorer seeking authentic experience that enlarges and evolves its scope of understanding. If you believe that the scope of our collective intelligence is so finite that it would contain humanity inside a prison cell not of its own making, then you believe the intelligence is not interconnected. It is singular. It is a God cut off from life and human experience, rather than an intelligence that is living life through all experiences. These are two very different beliefs. One is validated through religious books, and one is being validated through our emerging sciences. There will undoubtedly be, and already is, resistance to this scientific proof. This is because it requires a total realignment of our system of belief. We realign to the notion that we are an individualized, infinite entity of consciousness that interconnects with all other forms and expressions of life. That this fundamental belief requires us to see ourselves as one entity, despite the fact that our reality tells us we are not. It requires us to therefore be of understanding and express kindness into our local universe. To bring a higher harmony to our local universe, our individualized moment of infinite space-time that's always with us, the social tug of war that plays out in public policy, judicial judgment, political legislation, and religious morality. These are expressions of the interlocked nature of an accelerator and a brake. If you seek a destination, whatever vehicle you take, it requires both a system to brake as well as accelerate. The two functions constitute a system of travel. When we travel collectively through space-time, we divide into functions of a brake and accelerator. Yet these two functions are both necessary to achieve the goal of arriving at our destination. Some might believe that the brake is the dark force, conspiring to entrap us. Those of us who are part of the accelerator are particularly susceptible to believe this, because the brake is getting in our way. It is a point of frustration that limits our speed to our destination, when indeed, high-dimensional intelligence cannot be contained because it is all. Only our physical bodies, emotional feelings, and lower mind can be trapped, and only then when we fervently believe that we are a single individual living a single lifetime in a reality not of our making. Then we can believe the brake is like a prison warden. It controls us. It frustrates us. It even outright kills us. And yet, in all of this theater of good and evil, of illusion and conspiracy, we know that we are part of the infinite now, because we exist now. It cannot be otherwise. There is no motive in anything infinite. There is only motivation in the finite. In the infinite, we are explorers, observers, learners, integrators, adjusters, evolvers, creators, and experiencers. Motive is not within the infinite. There is a clash between the finite dimensions of our local universe as a persona with a pronoun and name identity, and those infinite dimensions that are part of our high-dimensional reality local universe. They are initially incompatible. They conflict with one another because they are so radically different as to be antagonistic in the human view. It is the highest purpose of human behavior to reconcile these differences, to harmonize them so that they can form a partnership. We learn to see the brake and accelerator as one function of travel, individually and collectively. We learn to draw in the high-dimensional intelligence within our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors while we live as a human being. We operate, in as much as we can, as a whole being that is not bound by space-time. We learn to see ourselves as a co-experiencer of our local universe, the finite parts in harmony with the infinite part. The break is imagined to be 1,000 different things. It is the other party in politics. It is the devil in religion. It is the government in society. It is the dark, nefarious money forces in conspiracy theories. It is celebrity influence in culture. All of these definitions only define a fear that we hold in the finite parts of us, and that fear is that we are not infinite, that we are not interconnected, that we are not part of an intelligence of love and kindness. And why do we hold those fears? Because we have listened to the outside of our local universe and not the inside. Because we have listened too well with our sensory brain and not with our heart's ear to our soul. Our local universe is our private sanctuary to learn from our higher self and that infinite intelligence that flows through it. To bring the high-dimensional perspective into our local universe and to practice it behaviorally, knowing it is the only method to validate for ourselves its efficacy, value, and truth. We live in a collective reality at every moment, collective in the largest sense of that word. We are moving from the singular individual of a species to a collective without exclusion. Consciousness of a cosmic scale is too limiting to use as a definition. The scales of an individual and collective intelligence are so different as to be inconceivable to coexist in space-time, and yet they do. The high-dimensional intelligence understands who it is and why it is. That is all it requires. This knowledge of who and why we are is the key that unlocks every door between our finite selves and our infinite self. Integrating our finite and infinite knowledge is what we are doing whether we know it or not. It is quite literally the only game in town. It is simply being carried out in an infinite variety of ways because we are bestowed with individuality, free will, and authentic learning while retaining our collective essence within.